cut out my squares. Now I've got these squares are all 4 inches square. So the 4 inches square, so that's the blue fabric. Sam went through and she fussy cutted hers, I noticed, so there was a doggy face on everyone, but I didn't because I like the fabric, so I wanted to keep as much as possible. And what's kind of nice is that you end up with a different bit, like a different picture on everyone. So I've got a dog's bum on that one, tree, got the moon and the trees, and various other things. So I haven't fussy cutted it, I've just cut squares, so I've used as less fabric as possible. And then I've done the same again for the other ones, and I think, thank you very much, thank you very much. So how many is there? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 8 squares, and then I've got the orange bits, and then another 8 squares. So there's 16 of the blue fabric, and then these bits. So the pattern for these bits, I followed the instructions. Sam sent an email through, and I'm turning the music down. Sam sent an email through that said that the pattern piece for that was wrong, so I'll tell you how I changed that in a minute. And then I'm following the instructions that she emailed, because she found a couple of mistakes in it. So I figured that I would just go through that, but it's really, really simple. Actually, it's a lot more simple than a proper bona fide cathedral window cushion. So I took her pattern piece and traced it onto paper, and then you want to keep 1 inch here. So the problem is that when you put it on there and put that one next to it, it was overlapping with each other, and you don't want them to. So to keep it the right width, I folded it in half right at the middle, and then I started to trim off tiny bits. So I started like with literally 1 millimeter, and then curved it round, and then another millimeter and curved it round, and I didn't take any off the middle point at all. I made sure that that stays 1 inch there in the middle. And then I ended up with pieces that were this shape, so they're probably slightly different from the ones that Sam had, but everyone's going to have slightly different ones if they're changing their pieces. And you know, it's important to not worry about it, isn't it? Because every piece will be different because of the way they've been cut. The material has been folded over and then cut. Some of them are more accurate, some of them are less accurate, and you can't worry about it. Like this one's got a bit of a straight edge there. It just depends on which layer of fabric you cut on. So that's how I managed to do that one. So I'll probably keep hold of that piece because I quite like it. I like the way the patterns come out. And then fiddling around with it, it's just a case of sewing round these. I started off by gluing, so these ones have got fabric glue on them to hold them in place. It's a bit easier than pins, but I've run out of glue, so I've had to then put pins in them, and I'm just using applique pins because they're quite small, they don't get in the way. But like on this one, for example, it doesn't meet properly. So because of that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull it forward a little bit. You've got to be mindful of the fact that actually you're going to be joining these with a 1/4 inch seam, so actually they're going to go right down to this point here, so we're not going to see any of this 1/4 inch around the outside. So you can move these around and play a little bit. So I could move that one in a little bit if I wanted more, but I think that one's probably going to be all right. And there's also going to be buttons on the joins, so as long as they're not overlapping and there's not too big a gap, then it's fine. So for this one, if I pin that there, so if I move that away, okay, so you can see I've got about 1/8 of an inch out, but I am going to sew a 1/4 inch seam, so that will all be hidden there. It doesn't matter, it's absolutely fine. So the only thing I am going to try and make sure I do when I've sewn them all up is I'm going to try and make sure I keep them all the right way up. But so I don't end up with upside down trees. But that's it really. So I decided to go really close to the edge, which was absolutely fine, but two things happened. So first of all, the machine here didn't like back stitching, where you've got these edges of fabric, the little tiny corners. It chewed them up on a couple of different pieces, did it here as well. So I started not back stitching, and I just thought, if I can start within that 1/4 inch seam allowance, as long as I make sure I do, all of these seams will be caught when I put the squares together, so it should be all right. And then the other thing that happened is, because I went so close to the edge, and because these D shapes are not all uniform, and you know, maybe I wasn't paying 100% attention, sometimes I just went off the edge. So I thought, well, I've got two choices. I can unpick it, or I can do it all again. Unpick it, do it all again, or I can go unpick the whole lot and go back to 1/4 inch. But I like them closer to the edge, and it's going to be my cushion after all, so I'm going to do them closer. And I just thought, no, I'm just going to go over it again and see what it looks like. And do you know what? I decided that I really liked it. I've just got into free motion embroidery on the machine, and I really like the kind of scribbly look. And for me, that suits these raw edges, because I don't like raw edges at all normally. And I was kind of like, oh, I'm not sure I'm going to like this, because it's all raw, and these will fray at some point, because they just will. And I'm not sure I'm going to like it. But actually, where you've got this effect here, where you've got like a scribbly line going along the edge, and then the fabric will fray a little bit, I really like it. So then I thought to myself, oh, I could just go over the whole lot like that. And I thought, no, I'm just going to make sure that every square I do has got one edge that I've gone over 2 or 3 times, and then it will be a design feature for everything. And it also means that I can mess up at least one on every square, and it's gonna look just neat enough with the rest, but just scribbly enough to allow for those edges to be frayed, and it will look a little bit shabby chic.